Animal End-of-Life Doula program. See, that's what I said. Pets are welcome in this session today. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicole Lewillier-Fenton. I work in our professional and continuing education department at the University of Vermont. We're going to quickly go through an agenda. Some introductions. We're going to talk about the role of a companion animal end-of-life doula. Ken is one of our alumni, so we're going to hear more from him in just a few minutes. And we have some other alumni that we'll hear from as well. And then we're just going to touch on some of those logistics of the Companion Animal End-of-Life Doula program, start dates, cost, everything that you need to know to hopefully join what an incredible program that we have here at the University of Vermont. So welcome, everybody. I did put in the chat that is where you can ask questions throughout the presentation. Both Ken and I will do our best to keep an eye on those questions. We also have Charlie, one of our enrollment coaches. Let me just quickly zip over. I have Charlie's slide here. I'll come back over to Ken in a second. Charlie is in the chat box. He's going to answer those logistics for you as well today. So let me back up. As I mentioned, my name is Nicole Lewillier-Fenton. I'll be guiding our conversation today. I'm in our professional and continuing education department. And Dr. Gorsiska is joining us as well from the West Coast. So keep that in mind. We often get that question, can I join our course, our end-of-life doula or companion animal from anywhere in the world? And Ken has proven that from San Francisco, the beautiful West Coast, it is possible. He is a recent graduate of our program. He has also completed the Companion Animal Euthanasia Training Academy, and he has been a veterinarian in the Bay Area since 1983 and has been an advocate for animals and done a ton of advocacy work for LGBTQ and veterinarians and medical students and clients throughout the country. So Dr. Gorsiska, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being with us, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you today. So let's just start quickly. I wanted to just back up for a moment. Before we dive into what is an end-of-life doula for companion animals, what is an end-of-life doula? And many times people in our end-of-life doula companion animal course have already taken the end-of-life doula course. So there's sometimes a learning that has already a foundation of end-of-life care, but many people have never been through our end-of-life care or any kind of end-of-life care program. And so that's okay too. But you're learning the principles of end-of-life care. And what does that mean? It's really end-of-life doulas provide comfort for the dying, coordination of care. They work very closely with a family or a client's hospital, their care facility, hospice, their families. They assist with legacy projects and respite care for family members. They're really supportive for family members as well. And very often end-of-life doulas do vigil planning and support. You can imagine, and we're going to hear from Ken in just a minute, so many of those pieces apply to companion animal as well. So what is a companion animal end-of-life doula? Really specializing in companioning with the family and the animal, complementing that work by veterinarians in the community as well, hospice, really working together with the family and the care, supporting animals and their owners with compassionate care, with information and emotional support. I want to come to Ken. Give us a little bit of your background. I know I had a slide up, but slides don't really tell the reason why you were drawn to this work. Will you share with us a little bit why you were drawn to companion animal end-of-life doula?
Well, as a veterinarian, I've always understood that the human-animal bond is a very powerful entity, and I have dealt with my own pets' losses over my life, from my first goldfish to my guinea pig, and as veterinarians, we play a unique role in the human-animal bond, especially around euthanasia or dying, because the end point of all life is death, and so it's always on the shoulder. And I also experienced what it was like to be a doula with my own father's death, where he was at home in hospice care, and he had the privilege of dying at home, surrounded by his family. And I knew that was an amazing, unique experience in the modern world. I think everyone died at home in the past eras, but It seemed like we were moving back towards that entity. And the same thing with veterinary practice. We moved from country vets euthanizing at home to bringing them into the exam room and taking them out of their home experience. And there's now a movement to have home euthanasia practice within the animal world as well. And so that's what drew me to it. And when I Googled end-of-life in animals, the University of Vermont course came up at the top of the list. And so I was immediately drawn to what it meant to be a doula. And I realized that I already have played the doula role as a veterinarian. And I would say that all veterinarians are doulas at some point in their career. And I believe that it's an important aspect for veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses, and veterinary receptionists to perhaps also try to understand how to be that role, because they're on the front lines of many practices. They're talking to the clients about their emotions. And so this class really helped me personally, but I see how it could help the whole veterinary profession.
Well, and I think there's no doubt that we've always heard many times that there's a lot of burnout, and you can imagine the emotional toll that it takes on veterinarians and the techs and the teams to see animals, really in pain and in points in their lives when they're coming to the end. And do you think that this course provided you tools and could provide tools for yourself as well, and also how to help families?
Well, I think it helped me just learn how to be neutral in this moment and try to not take on the emotions of the family, and try to allow them to grieve in a way that's necessary for them. Everyone grieves differently. And so I've learned to take care of myself through this process, and learning to perhaps meditate and try to not take on that emotion. It's a hard one for people dealing with euthanasia, and I think that's why the home euthanasia practice pulls me, because when a person's in their home and their pet's in their home, they're already calmer. So it's just a much better experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're stationed in Vermont, and we have seen quite a few more mobile veterinary services and coming to your home, and it's just a less stressful environment for everybody. So I would imagine that it's nice to hear that you're seeing a little resurgence of that as well. And Ken
Yes.
mentioned, veterinarians and veterinary technicians and office support people in animal hospitals as well. But we often get this question that I put up on the slide. Well, who would take this course? If I'm not a vet, is that right for me? And I have up here just a few different points, aspiring doulas, people that have taken the end-of-life doula program and want more, and further specialization, and expand maybe their offering if they are doing some work out in the community. Pet hospice and palliative care workers and volunteers. I think it's really important, as Ken mentioned, that support network around the veterinary hospitals as well. Caretakers, dog walkers, pet sitters, spiritual care providers, and pet owners. We'll hear from one of our former students in a video in just a few minutes, and she has a unique story to tell. She's a humanities and English teacher in middle school, but she has loved pets and animals for her whole life, and wishes that she had some support like what the End-of-Life Doula companion animals provide. So she sought it out for herself to help other families. So I think it's really interesting where you can see your own experiences and how you could potentially help people. So Ken, let's come back a little bit more on the course itself. Had you, there's always probably additional training as a veterinarian. Had you done an online course before? Was this something that you were experienced in, or was this fairly new to you?
Well, to be honest, during the COVID era, I have taken online courses and I really enjoy them. And I think that's what draws me to them, because you don't have to go into a classroom. You can be at home and work around it. This class specifically had a lot of material that you could look at on your own time. And so you could fit it into your own schedule. And I really like that as well. We ended up communicating through the programs of the school by writing essays and emails within the to the students. We communicated together, so we got to know each other at a pretty deep level, and the teachers and the staff were also very much involved. So it was a dynamic class. There's a lot of YouTubes and videos to watch and things to read. And I did not get this training while I was in vet school. We get taught about scientific death. We don't get taught about spiritual death. And I think that for me personally, it was a very empowering class as I move into this new field of euthanasia practice.
Yeah, and so tell me about that. What is next for you? Are you still practicing daily or part-time? And then what's next for you?
No, no, I'm not at the moment. I'm in a job transition and a career transition, and so I'm planning on going into a home euthanasia practice next year. And so this was really a perfect adjunct to that training as I get prepared for that. And so,
How did you weave in the learning and the course into your life? How'd you schedule that in?
well, as I said, can you hear me? Uh,
Hmm.
it was,
Yeah.
I mean, it took me, I was really motivated. So I really spent a lot of time on it, but it was flexible with this type of Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Can
Yep.
you hear me?
Yes.
So I would for me personally, I think I did a lot of there's 2 days a week you had to submit homework, so I would do a lot of it on the weekend or in the evenings. But uh, it went by quickly actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did the 4 week versus the 2 week because you hadn't done it was end of life. Yeah.
I
Okay.
did.
Yeah. Great. So we'll talk a little bit
Yeah.
more about that in a second. Great. So thank you, Ken. And please, if you have questions for Ken as well, you can put them in the chat and he will help to answer them in the chat. And then we'll also
I'm
discuss
losing
them
you
here in a
again.
minute. I'm going to just have a video that we're going to play. As I mentioned before, we have another alumni. Her name is Emily Wills. She is a middle school humanities teacher. So again, just the point of it's many different people that are drawn to this work. You don't have to be in the animal world. But Emily really describes what drew her to this course. And she also talks about in this video lifelong learning. Why does she continue her education? So I think that's an important piece for us to consider as we explore what might be next for us. So I'm just going to turn off my camera. Ken has done his. We'll be right back in a minute. So stay with us while you have the chance to watch this video with Emily Wills.
I think that living in Vermont, we're an interesting mix of people who very much see animals as like a family member and a part of their household. And there are people who see animals and need to use animals as a means to an end of businesses, of farming or other things like that. So that juxtaposition interests me. And because of my love of animals, but not wanting to do the medical side of it, a way that I could keep my main job teaching and still work with people and their pets, I thought was helping them say goodbye to their pets after a long, hopefully, and mutual relationship of love. And because I am not scared of death, if I can say that. And a lot of people, when they see their animal getting sick or ill and making that euthanasia decision, find it very difficult. I was hoping that I could be supportive through my own experience, but also because I have had people in my life I thought who helped me with that, and I found it really valuable. I think in today's world, it is more common than ever that different areas of life overlap. So obviously in education, I noticed that we provide food to children and we provide mental health services and we provide obviously the education, but we've noticed during this pandemic how much a school does for like the society. And so things overlap. Like I'm not just teaching English, we're doing social emotional skills, things like that. And with that being the case, in a classroom, I find that it's also the case in the real world that like it's very rare that the only people we see anymore are our own family. Like maybe that was more true 100 years ago. And so the more that I can learn and be exposed to new ideas and new skills, the more I feel like I'm ready to be a fully participatory citizen in the world. And I really do like learning. I think that's part of the reason I became a teacher, but I also feel a little bit like it's my duty, especially in a fairly small town area of Vermont, to keep expanding my worldview so that I can be a better teacher, but also a better voter and citizen. So I like it, but I also feel there's a little bit of like civic responsibility there too.
Interesting perspective from Emily. And Ken, you can turn back on your camera and come back and join us. You know, Emily just really talks about that connection with animals and what can she do to support her friends and family and maybe feel better prepared when one of her animals may, you know, be nearing the end of their life. Ken, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what Emily said, and was that kind of your experience as well, that there was a wide variety of people in the course with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would just say that this class not only help me think about end of life issues for animals, but I think it was really important for just understanding human relationships in general. I mean, it's a much broader topic than just what you would think from the title. And when I talk to other people that have taken the class, they feel that their own human relations get better because you learn how to be less emotional and less charged around issues that parallel end of life issues. So I think it's just a great learning tool for all of us.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for sharing that. And I do want to answer Nicole's question. She asked, do you need to take the animal doula course before taking this one? Not necessarily. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Thank you for that great question. So just a little bit more logistics of the course. And Ken mentioned many of the things that are listed here in topics. You know, compassionate care, the doula essentials, pet hospice, palliative care, after death options and support. I think that's just one of the most wonderful things that comes out of this course is vigil opportunities and legacy projects for our animals. They are 100% a family member. And so we should absolutely plan vigils and remembrance and legacies of these wonderful pets that we've had in our lives. So I think it's such a great thing that that is something that comes out of the course. And really it's a focus on honoring and memorializing those bonds between animals and their family. 100% online, as Ken mentioned, at your own pace. There are milestones throughout each week in terms of that when things are due and discussion points and learning and reading and videos, but really it's at your pace. Usually about 7 to 10 hours a week. Ken, would you say that's about right on? Is that kind of what you put into it? I know you can go more, but does that feel about right?
It does. That was about right. And yes.
Yeah, and I know you can always kind of dive in a little bit more too, as needed. And let's go to answer Nicole's question as well. And I see Charlie answered that for us too. Thank you so much, Charlie. So here's kind of the two different options. And Ken was telling us he took the 4-week course because the 2-week certificate course is for people that have completed the the End-of-Life Doula, so the human doula course. And so if you are a End-of-Life Doula program graduate, you can really dive into the 2 weeks because in the beginning of the 4-week certificate, there are those doula basics that it go over. So if you've completed the End-of-Life Doula professional certificate, you don't need to go back over that again. You can if you'd like to, but it's not necessarily required. And so we've got a couple different start dates. We're looking forward to spring. March and February are some of the start dates. They're listed here. Registration is usually a week before, so you just want to keep an eye on that. These courses do fill. And so as I've also put up there, the next round of courses, you can see the 4-week certificate starting in June, and then the 2-week certificate starting in May. May as well. And the fees also listed there, and what you need to do for a deposit at that time to hold your spot. We have a great question here from Janet too. Janet says, yes, it is online. Are there opportunities for live discussion with the teachers and other participants? I don't know, Ken, are there opportunities for live discussions in the 4-week?
My recollection was that it was mostly through email communication. I think the teachers would talk to you in person if you
Yeah,
needed
and a
to,
lot
but
of communication back and forth with
that
each
type
other
of work.
in terms of talking and discussion posts and different topics. Did you feel, Ken, that there was a community that was built in your cohort when you went through?
Oh, absolutely. I got to know people from all over the country or the world, really, and just learning individual stories around pets and pet loss. I mean, it was just it was a heartening experience for
That's
sure.
great. That's so
And
great to hear.
I'm
And
still in
that is so
communication
true of
with a
our
few
end
of
of
them.
life doula, the human side. The community is very strong. And so I'm not surprised that it's built in this side as well. Paula asked, does the course provide info or guides for introducing end of life pet doula services in areas of the country where the service is completely unheard of? How much was talked about in terms of beginning that work?
Well, it's a big. Yeah, well, this is what I've learned. This is a very new field of discovery, and there really is no official program, and and so we're all on the front lines trying to figure out how to best integrate this into society. And from my perspective, I think there is opportunity within veterinary hospitals, perhaps to take on that role, because veterinarians right now are overworked, and I understand there's like 2 or 3 months out to get an appointment, and so I think there's now going to be an opening for this type of role within the profession, but it's hopefully, as in the human world, it will start to evolve in the pet world as well, and the importance will
Yeah.
become
What do you think
more
that
understood
conversation will be like?
as we move
Somebody,
forward.
if you put back on your veterinarian hat and somebody gives a call or sends an email to your office and says, I am interested in providing companion animal services,
So,
what do you think? What would be some advice maybe for people that might want to make that phone call to their local veterinarian offices? What would they say to pitch these services?
well, I think that it might be good to start out with your own veterinarian and have a discussion with someone that you know, that just to get their thoughts on it. I think there's a lot of pet loss support groups around. That's a whole nother way of getting involved. And I think that it's going to be an individual clients might need the veterinarian will probably know some family member or family that really is having difficulty with this process, and that could be a place where you could say, well, I could spend time with them trying to help them work through this issue. So I think it
Yeah, that's
starts
a
out
really
with a
good point. Yeah,
conversation,
and Terry
and I would
made
start
a
with your own
comment that
veterinarian
Terry
and
spoke with
go
a
from
vet
there.
who was not supportive, could influence the owner one way or the other. And I think that's a really important point. And I'm just going to zip back over here for just a second. In terms of end of life doula. So the companion animal is really rooted in end of life doula, right? And so it's not giving guidance and advice and medical advice at all. It is complementing that care and supporting. And so I think the more that you can have that kind of language, Terry, to understand the foundations of doulas, it would help in those conversations with veterinarians, I suspect. So let's talk about that for a second. So I just wanted to um, share what is our end of life doula
Yes.
professional certificate program. I saw a couple questions about that as well. So in the end of life doula program, topics that are introducing the work, grief continuum, understanding patient experience, those boundaries. And I think, Terry, that's also, what would be helpful for you as well in these conversations are what are the boundaries of an end of life doula and a companion animal end-of-life doula as well. There's a review of different religious and cultural beliefs and practices. It doesn't encompass everything, but it's a very broad, a big overview. Preparing for loss. And again, back to that vigil planning and that intention. What is the intention of the client and the family as well? And in the End-of-Life Doula certificate program, the bonus module really helps you to think about starting a career in that field as well. So the program for End-of-Life Doula that you could take before the Animal Doula, if you wanted to, would begin again in May. We have other dates that are starting, but they're full. So the next open slot for the End-of-Life Doula professional certificate is in May. They fill very quickly. So I just recommend that if it's something you're interested in, that I would recommend exploring it. There are additional dates coming up. The End-of-Life Doula program runs 5 times a year. So just looking at that timing and that planning as well, and then thinking about companion animal. So I want to come back. Nicole asked another question, and Ken, this is a great one for you. She asked, what kind of homework is there in the course? Are things graded? And is there do you need to have a grade to pass? But let's talk about the homework. What are some of the things that you did? Yep.
Well, can you hear me okay? Because I'm coming in and out. Okay. Well, there's different YouTubes and mini lectures that you can watch. There's materials to read, articles. And as for homework, you're required to write some essays, not too long. I mean, they're not like major essays, but you could be writing about a pet loss that you've been through. Or and as for grading, I think the main thing is that you need to get it in on time, and that's really your grade. Almost everyone, I think, would pass as long as you're following the timely fashion of the class. And there's not like a test per se. It's all writing, and you also respond to other people's emails and essays, so that's part of the learning curve, is that you are learning how to be work like a doula with your classmates.
So important. Thank you for sharing
really
that. Typically, the course opens up on either a Wednesday or a Sunday. And that information, maybe Charlie, you could add that into the chat box as to when the modules open up. And those are essentially the week of learning, and those different topics is a module. And they'll either be 2 weeks of modules or 4 weeks of modules, depending on which one you do. And when they open up, that's your opportunity to see the reading, the discussions that you need to do, maybe an essay that you need to do, videos you need to watch. Like, what am I doing this week, and what do I owe in terms of deadlines? And then usually there's an assignment due, and then there's kind of the 2-part assignment usually throughout the week as well. So as we mentioned a little bit earlier, it's about 7 to 10 hours a week, but you can always kind of put in more if needed, because there's always additional information available to you. So just hoping that everybody, I know we've seen a couple questions coming back to those dates, and thank you, Charlie, so much for putting those dates in there as well. And Jessica, there's the only prerequisite is, well, there really isn't a prerequisite, because you can take the 4-week. If you have taken the End-of-Life Doula professional certificate, the human side, you can then go straight into the 2-week companion animal. So really that's just the difference, but there's no prerequisite to do the 4-week certificate course as well. And great, Charlie, thank you. They do open up on Wednesday as well. You're welcome, Jessica. So I just wanted to, I see our questions are starting to slow down a little bit. Oh, good. Yep. Sandra, here you go. Here's the next dates, the next opening for the End-of-Life Doula, the professional certificate. The human side, the next opening that we have is in May. And then you can see those other dates. We usually have one late summer and fall as well. Can you do the animal part before the human part? Yes, you sure can. You absolutely can. Yep, you can take the 4-week certificate on animal doula, and then you could come in to learn more about, expand your knowledge on the human end-of-life doula as well. Thank you, Charlie, for answering those questions so quickly. Ken, I just want to end with you, and we'll wrap up because it's at the half hour. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and your interest in our program. We're so happy to see so many people wanting to do this kind of work. But Ken, let me come back to you. Why do you think this is important? Why is it exciting that there was 78 people that were live with us today? What's exciting about that?
Well, Benjamin Franklin said, there's only two things in life that you can be certain of it.
Yep, we gotcha. We gotcha.
Can you hear? I'm not sure you can hear me. Can as Benjamin Franklin said, there's only two things you can be certain about in life, and that's taxes and death. And so I think in our society, one of the biggest fears we have is even discussing death with each other or with others in the society. And animal companion death is sometimes how people learn about death. When you're children, it could be your first experience with death, or even young adults, it could be the first experience you have. And so the human animal bond is such a powerful entity that I think that it behooves all of us to try to acknowledge that loss. And I believe the University of Vermont's on the cutting edge of trying to bring that work to society. So I'm really grateful for what you're doing, because it's a conversation that we all need
Thank
to
you, Ken.
do,
Thank you so much for your
continue to
support.
do in our own
Thank you for
lives.
diving into this work and being an advocate for so many. But thank you so much for sharing the important work of Companion Animal End-of-Life Doula. And thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Kelly and Foster and Eric on the back end making this possible. Ken, we wish you the best. We can't wait to see the new practice and hear about your success. And we wish you to stay well. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Take care.